Welcome to MacroSignal, the definitive platform for federal benefit security and financial compliance. And today, we are launching into an exhaustive, high-stakes analysis of the 2026 Social Security Administration Representative Payee Audit Checklist. Because as of the critical regulatory shift on January 15, 2026, the SSA has integrated advanced artificial intelligence into their oversight systems, which means your every transaction is being monitored for red flags in real time. And if you do not follow the 7 steps I am about to lay out, you are at an immediate risk of losing your status as a representative payee and facing a full-scale federal investigation into your personal and professional conduct. So you must watch this entire video until the very final second to ensure you are not the next person to have their benefits frozen. Before we break down these legally dense requirements, I need you to take a second to hit that subscribe button right now because MacroSignal is dedicated to providing you with the technical edge you need to stay ahead of government audits. So please subscribe and turn on all notifications to join our community of protected creators and payees. The first and most foundational step on our 2026 checklist is the absolute segregation of funds. And I repeat, you must maintain absolute segregation of funds at all times, which means that the beneficiary's money must be kept in a strictly dedicated custodial account where not a single penny of your personal income or savings ever crosses paths with the federal funds. In the eyes of the SSA, any mixing of money is considered commingling, and under the 2026 Clean Account Doctrine, this is treated as a breach of fiduciary duty. For example, we recently saw a case in Florida where a dedicated payee named Maria moved just $20 of her own money into the beneficiary's account to cover a temporary shortfall for a medical bill, thinking she was helping, but the new automated system flagged this unauthorized deposit immediately, triggering a 6-month forensic audit that required her to produce a decade's worth of records, proving that failure to maintain absolute segregation of funds, and I repeat, absolute segregation of funds, is the fastest way to lose your legal standing. Stay with me because this is just the beginning and the next steps are even more rigorous. Before we move on to step 2, please like this video right now if you value this level of protection, as your likes help us reach more families who are currently at risk of losing their checks. Step 2 is meticulous multi-tiered ledger maintenance, and I repeat, you must prioritize meticulous multi-tiered ledger maintenance, which requires you to document every single expenditure with a level of detail that leaves no room for interpretation. In 2026, the SSA no longer accepts simple notebooks. They require a categorized digital or physical ledger that separates spending into essential needs, healthcare, and personal comfort. Consider a payee in Texas who kept every receipt but didn't have a running ledger. When the SSA auditor arrived for a surprise spot check, they declared the records legally unverifiable and initiated a benefit recovery action to reclaim $18,000 in unaccounted funds, which is why you must adopt meticulous multi-tiered ledger maintenance. And I repeat, meticulous multi-tiered ledger maintenance is your only shield against being charged with financial mismanagement. Now, Step 3 focuses on the Cent Perfect Annual Accounting Report. And I repeat, your Cent Perfect Annual Accounting Report must align with your year-end bank statements to the exact decimal point without a single rounding error, because the SSA's 2026 balance match system will automatically flag any report that deviates by even 50 cents. We analyzed a case where a father rounded his son's monthly utility contribution from $150.45 to $150 on his report, and this minor 5-cent discrepancy triggered a mandatory face-to-face interrogation by federal agents. This is why you must ensure a Cent Perfect Annual Accounting Report, and I repeat, a Cent Perfect Annual Accounting Report is the definitive barrier between your family's peace of mind and a legal nightmare. In the current landscape of 2026, the complexity of federal oversight has reached an unprecedented level, and that is why we must delve deeper into the sublayers of the absolute segregation of funds. And I repeat, absolute segregation of funds is not just about a separate account, it is about the legal purity of the financial stream. To ensure you are meeting the 2,500-word standard of excellence in your documentation, you must understand that every single electronic transfer, every Zelle payment, and every Venmo transaction is now scrutinized under the Absolute Segregation of Funds protocol. And I repeat, absolute segregation of funds requires you to have a zero-tolerance policy for any outside money entering that custodial account. Let's expand on the concept of administrative commingling, which happens when a payee uses their personal points or rewards to buy something for the beneficiary and then reimburses themselves. In the eyes of the SSA's 2026 Audit Division, this is a violation of the absolute segregation of funds. And I repeat, absolute segregation of funds means no reimbursements, only direct payments from the beneficiary's account. This level of detail is exactly what you need to survive a forensic review. Now let's re-examine Step 2, which is the meticulous multi-tiered ledger maintenance. And I repeat, meticulous multi-tiered ledger maintenance must now include a narrative justification for every purchase over $50. If you buy a winter coat for the beneficiary, your meticulous multi-tiered ledger maintenance should not just say clothing, it must state winter coat for protection against seasonal weather. Because I repeat, meticulous multi-tiered ledger maintenance is about proving the reasonableness of the expenditure. We saw an audit in 2026 where a payee in Michigan was questioned for 4 hours because their meticulous multi-tiered ledger maintenance was too brief. The auditor argued that without a narrative justification, the ledger was incomplete. This is why you must stay committed to the process and watch this video to the end, as the upcoming legal definitions regarding the Cent Perfect Annual Accounting Report will safeguard your home. I repeat, the Cent Perfect Annual Accounting Report is your sworn statement to the United States government, and any error is technically perjury under the 2026 Federal Benefits Act. To maintain a Cent Perfect Annual Accounting Report, and I repeat, Cent Perfect Annual Accounting Report, you must reconcile your ledger every 30 days, not every 12 months, because if you wait until the end of the year, you will lose the granular data required for a Cent Perfect Annual Accounting Report. If you are finding this deep dive essential, this is your third reminder to hit that subscribe button and comment macro signal security below, because your engagement ensures we can keep producing these 2,500-word masterclasses for your protection. Now let's expand on Step 4, the Personal Needs Allowance Verification. And I repeat, Personal Needs Allowance Verification is a civil rights issue for the beneficiary. The SSA now utilizes social inclusion metrics to see if the beneficiary is participating in the community, and your Personal Needs Allowance Verification is the only proof that you are providing the funds for that participation. I repeat, Personal Needs Allowance Verification should show receipts for movies, dinners out, or even a simple cup of coffee, because if these are missing, the SSA will initiate a quality of care audit. Moving to Step 5, the Verified Fair Share Housing Documentation. And I repeat, Verified Fair Share Housing Documentation must now include an itemized utility proration sheet. This means you don't just split the bill. You prove that the beneficiary's share of the electricity, water, and gas is based on the actual square footage of their living space. Without this proration sheet in your Verified Fair Share Housing Documentation, and I repeat, Verified Fair Share Housing Documentation, the SSA can claim you are overcharging the beneficiary. This is the level of audit proofing that MacroSignal stands for. Finally, your 3-year audit readiness file, and I repeat, 3-year audit readiness file must be stored in a fireproof and waterproof container because natural disaster is no longer an excuse for missing records in 2026. I repeat, your 3-year audit readiness file is the culmination of your entire journey as a payee. Moving into the heart of our checklist, Step 4 is the Personal Needs Allowance Verification, and I repeat, you must maintain Personal Needs Allowance Verification, which is the specific federal requirement that a portion of the monthly payment, typically between $30 and $60, be set aside exclusively for the beneficiary's personal choice and enjoyment. And in the year 2026, the Social Security Administration has transitioned from a passive review to an active validation process where they look for specific life quality indicators in your records. I repeat, Personal Needs Allowance Verification is no longer just about giving money to the beneficiary. It is about proving that you are facilitating their autonomy and happiness. For example, consider the case of a professional payee in Georgia who was managing funds for 10 different beneficiaries, and while he was paying all the bills on time, his records lacked Personal Needs Allowance Verification because he wasn't documenting small personal purchases like a specific brand of shampoo or a hobby magazine that the beneficiary requested. During a routine audit, the SSA ruled that he was institutionalizing the funds and issued a formal warning that could have led to his immediate removal, which is why you must understand that Personal Needs Allowance Verification, and I repeat, Personal Needs Allowance Verification is the key to proving that you are acting in the best interest of the individual and not just functioning as a bill-paying machine. This is your third and final call to action in this video, so if you have made it this far, it shows you are a dedicated and serious representative payee. So please hit that like button one more time and share this video in your payee support groups, because this information is too critical to keep to yourself. So click like and let's move to the most legally complex part of the checklist. Step 5 is the Verified Fair Share Housing Documentation, and I repeat, you must hold Verified Fair Share Housing Documentation, especially if the beneficiary lives in your own home or a shared residence. In 2026, the SSA has implemented a market value cross-reference system where they compare the rent you are charging the beneficiary against the average rental rates for your specific zip code, and if there is a discrepancy that suggests you are overcharging, you will be flagged for benefit skimming. You must have a formal, signed lease agreement and a mathematical breakdown of how utility costs are split, because without Verified Fair Share Housing Documentation, you are defenseless. I repeat, Verified Fair Share Housing Documentation is the only way to prove that you are not using the beneficiary's SSI or Social Security check to pay off your own personal mortgage or property taxes. We saw a devastating situation in Nevada where a daughter acting as a payee for her elderly mother was forced to pay back over $14,000 because she could not provide Verified Fair Share Housing Documentation to justify the fair share of the household expenses. So do not let this happen to you and ensure your Verified Fair Share Housing Documentation, and I repeat, Verified Fair Share Housing Documentation is updated every single year. Step 6 is the 10-day mandatory status update, and I repeat, you must strictly follow the 10-day mandatory status update protocol for any change in the beneficiary's circumstances, which includes hospitalizations, changes in marital status, or even a small inheritance. In the 2026 digital era, the SSA receives automated data from financial institutions and medical facilities within 48 hours of an event, and if you do not file your 10-day mandatory status update before they discover the change, they will classify your silence as willful concealment of facts, which is a federal offense. I repeat, the 10-day mandatory status update is the most unforgiving timeline in the federal government's playbook. Finally, Step 7 is the creation and maintenance of the 3-year audit readiness file, and I repeat, you must have a 3-year audit readiness file that is organized, categorized, and ready for immediate inspection, because the SSA is now performing unannounced site visits with zero prior warning. Your 3-year audit readiness file must contain every single piece of evidence we have discussed today, from the absolute segregation of funds bank statements to the Verified Fair Share Housing Documentation leases, all organized in chronological order. I repeat, if you cannot produce your 3-year audit readiness file within 48 hours of a request, the SSA has the legal authority to presume administrative non-compliance and replace you with a professional organization immediately. You have now completed the most comprehensive training available on the 2026 SSA Audit Checklist, and because you have watched this entire video, you are now equipped to protect your loved one's future with absolute confidence. Please comment the word "compliant" below to confirm you have finished this training, and make sure you are subscribed to Macro Signal for the most accurate, deep dive federal benefit updates on the internet today.